Okay, so good morning and welcome to Coffee Talk Morning Idea Iteration, brought to you by Ishka Studio. I'm going to be your host today, Ari Dallas, and we're going to be talking about some random ideas that I've thought were worth writing down, or in this case, audioing down, recording down. The first thing that comes to mind is, what if you could have a computer that was almost entirely text and audio based so that you could do everything that you currently do with your screen, but just through speaking to the computer, so that if you wanted to be less screen focused, you could do that. And I know that this technology works already, and basically it is spread out in a variety of applications, but I feel that the territory has more room for exploration and more room for a unified kind of user interface experience. And what comes to mind is like a feature where maybe you could say, like, hey, computer. Yes, Ari, what did you have in mind? Well, I was wondering if you could go to my emails from December 12th, 2025. Okay, what email are you looking for? Well, I think I mentioned something about laying in bed that day. Could you find an email from around that date? Oh, sure. There's four different options that all include the word bed, starting with option one. Dear Diary, today I was in bed watching a movie with Clint Eastwood. Oh, okay, computer, stop. That's the one. Okay. And then maybe the computer would wait as long as you wanted to, and maybe it could play like a little, I don't know, like holding music, or just like maybe like a little percussion pattern, like. Okay, maybe that's a little too annoying, but maybe like. Or maybe nothing, maybe just silence. And oh my god, I'm noticing my audio clipping. Okay. Um, and that could be an example of a feature. The Oh my god, there's also cables falling in my room. Okay. The second idea. Okay, idea number two. What if you could make a new type of program for creating songs, for writing down songs, that was basically like a GitHub project with different branches, or just like a tree based project where you could write down, like you would start at the top, and the first line would be like whatever is your idea for the first verse. And let's say that you had like four different ideas for the first verse. They would all be next to each other on that same line, and you could rearrange like the order of them, if you wanted to, but you could also just leave them in the order they are, and I'll explain why. So you've got your first verses on the first line. On the line below, you've got your second verses, and you would go through, your whole song, verse one. Yeah, I call it verse two, but verse one, verse two, pre-chorus, chorus, verse three, verse four, pre-chorus, chorus, etc. However you wanted to do your song structure, and you could come up with whatever song structure you wanted. And you would essentially, you could iterate over your song tree as many times as you wanted, and keep on putting like parallel ideas where they would kind of go into a category, and then to link them, you would have what I kind of imagine as like a river of light, or like an alignment of tree roots, and you would trace the path from like the verse you liked best through to the second verse you like best to the pre-chorus that you liked, and you could and so you could sort of toggle between different versions of this song by kind of tracing different paths. And then where I feel like it gets really interesting in my mind is like, let's say that you had like 5 or 6 different paths that you thought were like maybe the best versions of the song that you had in mind, but they all were kind of like unique incarnations, kind of like the way that like James Cameron is doing all these different like Avatar movies. Let's say that you had all of those and then you did like a mixed and mastered version of each of the different like song trees that you had, and then you put them together into like a playlist where like it would play like every time that song came up in just your like, let's say you went through the album, every time the song came up in the playlist, it would play you like a different version of one of your song trees, and um and like it could kind of be this like evolving song experience where the album would be slightly different each time because it would play like a different version of the song tree, and then you as the artist could decide like how similar or different those renditions would be, but it would kind of be like an algorithmic organic album. And then my last thought about this idea is like you could probably or it'd be interesting to try out a version where like it'll play maybe 10 different versions of your song, and then it will like decompose, and that would be the end of the ability to listen to that song either for a while or maybe even forever. And there's a part of me that thinks like, what would be the point of making something that you couldn't like access back again? But then I just keep thinking about how like art should reflect life in the sense that like you can never really have the same experience twice, and even if you listen to like the same song 100 times, like you have changed each time in between listening, even if it doesn't seem like you've changed. um but I wanted to like experiment with a technology where you have the experience of like having it happen and then having it be over, and feeling curious about if that would change the relationship to the listening experience, about trying to maybe pay even closer attention to when the songs are being played. Um, so it's an idea. Okay.